Hello and welcome to the channel. This is Valyeth, and this is the second video in my How to Heal Tanks in M+ series. Today we'll be looking at Protection Warrior and Brewmaster Monk. I got some great feedback and responses from my first video, and if you missed that one, make sure you go back and watch it. You can find the link in the description below, or you can click the link above. If you like this kind of content and want to see more of it, please consider liking and sharing this video. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and commenting below. I love making healing focused videos, and with your help, I can make even more of them. The first tank we'll be talking about today is Protection Warrior. A tank that knows how to take a punch to the face and not even notice. Prot warriors excel in physical damage mitigation due to their very high armor value and defensive kit. They have fantastic mobility via charge and heroic leap, but they suffer magic damage mitigation and self-healing capabilities. Let's talk about their active mitigation and how this affects you as a healer. The number one thing a Prot warrior needs to do is make sure shield block is up 100% of the time. This spell blocks all incoming melee attacks for the next 6 seconds. If they let that drop for even 1 second, they are open to taking a substantial amount of damage very quickly, which if you as a healer is not prepared for, could leave them dead on the floor. This ability is what makes them superior tanks on physical damage fights. In Season 2, Freehold, which you can see in the background here, was heavily stacked with physical damage enemies. Prot warriors were by far the best tank for this dungeon due to their defensive kit and the active mitigation of shield block. Go back to the start of this video when you check out the first pull in Freehold. The warrior tank took practically no damage whatsoever during that entire pull. That's because the full pack there is all physical damage. It is very apparent when you're in a group with a Prot warrior that knows how to play and someone that does not, and it's primarily due to their shield block uptime. What I generally do is play very defensively the first few pulls just to see how they manage their shield block. If they do it well, then I can choose to be more flexible with my decision making. The second mitigation spell we'll talk about is Ignore Pain, which ignores 50% of damage taken up to a certain amount. This is their main rage dump ability, and as with shield block, this should have a very high uptime as it is a very powerful damage mitigation spell, and when it's not up, they will take a significant amount more in damage, especially on fights where there's more magic damage. Lastly is their stance of choice, which in general should be in battle stance that gives them 3% crit chance and 10% reduction in movement impairing effects, but more importantly does not penalize them with a 10% damage done reduction like defensive stance does. A good Prot warrior knows how to stand stance, meaning they use defensive stance as a cooldown to take 20% less damage on encounters that have substantial amounts of incoming damage. For the run-of-the-mill packs, battle stance is preferred. Make sure you know when they are in either stance at all times, because if you know they're about to take a lot of damage and you see the tank is in battle stance, you're going to need to pay a little bit more attention to them. Let's take a look at some pulls to show you how much of a difference Prot warrior active mitigation has on their survivability. Once again, I asked my tank buddy MadPro to help me showcase good and bad Prot warrior gameplay. On the left, I asked him to make some attempt at maintaining shield block and ignore pain and be in battle stance, but spend rage more so on damage because, zug big numbers, right? On the right, I asked him to maintain 100% uptime on both mitigation spells and be in defensive stance, and use his rage more so in a balanced way. As you can see, on the left, his health bar dips down very low, very fast, and in some cases very suddenly. Us as healers would likely have a small heart attack at this point and pump a lot of healing into him to keep him alive and avoid a wipe. On the right side, he's still taking damage, but it is much more consistent and less spiky. Spike damage is what kills tanks, and is what wastes tank and healer CDs. If your tank can maintain a consistent amount of damage taken, then they've made your job as healer much more predictable, which tends to result in more effective healing and less wasted CDs. Prot warriors are also known for having very powerful defensive CDs. So let's talk about them so that you know what your tank can and should do to prevent their own death so you don't have to. Shield Wall is their biggest oh shit button. It reduces all damage taken by 40% for 8 seconds. It has a base 3.5 minute CD, but thanks to various talents is reduced substantially and should expect it to be available every 2 to 2.5 minutes. It is an incredibly powerful CD that should be used in situations where they know massive damage is incoming. However, it is only really useful if used before damage goes out. Many times you will see novice tanks hit this after damage is taken, and it's just a complete waste at that point. Last Stand is another great CD they can push either before or after damage goes out. It increases their max HP by 30% and then instantly heals them for that amount. It is great for tank busters or for those oh shit moments when they take unexpected damage. It's a simple CD, but it's very effective. Next up is Demoralizing Shout, which is both an offensive and defensive CD. If talented correctly, this will generate a good amount of rage, but more importantly, it causes enemies within 10 yards to do 25% less damage for the next 8 seconds. Thanks to its short CD of 45 seconds, this should be used when available, as it helps not only the tank, but the group as a whole take less damage. Not having this up when available and you're taking damage is just trolling at that point. Spell Reflection is possibly my favorite CD that warriors have. It reflects an eligible spell cast upon the tank, and it also reduces magic damage taken for 20% for 5 seconds. The first part is the fun part, and if used against the correct spell, can completely negate a mechanic, but it also has the added benefit of doing some decent damage back to the caster. Prot warriors are quite weak against magic damage, and this is the only spell they have that specifically mitigates it. Last but not least is Rallying Cry. Not so much a tank specific CD, but a group-wide ability that can be very useful if used correctly. Rallying Cry grants all party members 15% maximum health for 10 seconds. The best boss I can think of where this is useful is the first boss in Eltharion's Lair, and its Shatter ability. This does a ton of damage, especially on tyrannical weeks, and a well-placed Rallying Cry can easily save someone from certain death if you as a healer is falling behind. That is it for Protection Warriors, a tank that I love to play with, and if played correctly can be incredibly powerful. I can't wait to see how they turn out in Season 3. Next up, let's talk about Brewmaster Monks, a high damage dealing healing machine that have a CD for practically any situation. They have a tendency to suffer from higher than average damage taken, with a smaller health pool to sustain themselves, and a more complicated active mitigation mechanic. We can't talk about Brewmaster Monks without first talking about their unique Stagger ability. Stagger delays a portion of incoming damage taken and spreads it out over 10 seconds. I want to be clear here. Stagger only delays baseline 20% of incoming damage. The remaining 80% is taken to the face and then either mitigated by armor, dodging, or other measures. This stagger is only 45% effective against magic damage, so they are innately squishier to this damage type. Whenever you know there's a lot of casters and magic damage going out, you will need to spend more time healing them. Stagger does provide monk tanks with a direct counter to the most dangerous thing to them, burst damage. As mentioned before, the baseline stagger damage is 20% of damage taken, but this percentage can be improved upon in various ways so that more damage is delayed. Those spells are Shuffle and Fortifying Brew. Fortifying Brew is a 6-minute CD that improves stagger damage by 15%. But thanks to the talent Shuffle, their Blackout Kick, Keg Smash, and Spinning Crane Kick, all of which the monk tank should be using frequently, makes their stagger 100% more effective. This does not stack, mind you, and only refreshes the buff. Combine this with all of the various ways they can absorb, heal, or straight up just remove damage from the game, can make this a completely broken spec if piloted by the right player. And if they then throw in the high dodge chance from their mastery, monk tanks are masters of damage manipulation and avoidance. So how do Brewmaster Monks manage their stagger damage? The number one spell for us to keep track of is Purifying Brew. It is a 20-second CD that removes 50% of all the accumulated staggered damage. Now think about that for a second. They take a bunch of damage that gets spread out over 10 seconds, and they hit this one button, and half of that damage just straight up disappears. That is an incredibly powerful ability that only monks have. Every time they cast Purifying Brew, which is often, they gain a stack of Purifying Chi, capping out at 10 stacks. This Chi is then used for Celestial Brew, a 45-second CD, which makes them absorb an insane amount of damage if you have high Chi stacks. The shield is capped at their maximum health, but is a very strong CD on a very short timer. Now we can't ignore one of their more powerful self-healing capabilities, and that is Expel Harm. It costs 15 energy with a 4-second CD, and it consumes Healing Spheres, which have a chance to spawn when they take damage or use Blackout Kick or Rising Sun Kick. They stack up to 5, and if they have a full 5 stack of it, it will fully heal them. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to track these Healing Spheres. If anyone watching this video knows how we as healers can track these, please let me know in the comments, as I think this could be incredibly helpful to have. How effective your Brewmaster Monk is at managing their stagger, Purifying Brew, Chi stacks, Expel Harm, and when to use Celestial Brew for mitigation is the cornerstone of Brewmaster gameplay. Let's take a look at some polls to show how much of a difference proper stagger management has on monk tanks and us as healers. As always, my buddy MattBro will model 2 different playstyles of monk tanking. On the left, I asked him to make some attempt at managing both stagger buffing and damage removal, but fumble a bit along the way. On the right side, I asked him to use all of the spells available to him to manage incoming damage and make sure he is in no danger of death. As you can see, on the left, his health bar dips down very low and very fast, and in some cases very suddenly. And this is due to improper use of the various mitigation spells we just discussed. On the right side, he's still taking damage, but is much more consistent and less spiky. Similar to the Prot Warrior, Brewmaster Monks, if played right, can be very consistent in incoming damage, albeit a bit higher than other tanks. The key here is for us as healers to be aware of this damage profile, so we don't panic when their health bar dips down. Much like Blood Death Knights, Brewmaster Monks present us healers with a different damage profile and mitigation kit compared to the more traditional archetypes such as Warriors, Druids, and Paladins. The class is built to be able to withstand a significant amount of damage and live without the need for external help, so long as they have set up their stagger appropriately and have CDs available to mitigate the unstaggered damage. I will say, Monk tanks are fun to heal, but they feel a bit squishy even if they are played correctly. Their armor value and health pool is quite low compared to other tanks, which makes unstaggered physical hits do more damage, and you as a healer will likely feel similar bouts of panic as when you heal Blood Death Knights. If you have an Augmentation Evoker in your party, their kit will help with this particular problem significantly. When it comes to Monk tanks, your job as a healer is to at all times be aware of their CD for Purifying Brew, Expel Harm and Chi Stacks, and Celestial Brew. If these are all on CD and huge amounts of damage has just been recently taken, you know your tank is going to be hit very hard. Novice Monk tanks have a tendency to use Purifying Brew when they have low stagger amounts. This in turn means that they won't have it available when they do actually need it and their stagger hits red. As usual, at the beginning of any run, I would suggest you play defensively to see how they manage their stagger via all the active mitigation abilities we have discussed. If you see them stacking up Chi good, use Purifying Brew on yellow or red stagger and Celestial Brew to cope with unstaggered burst damage, then you know you have a good tank on your hands. That is it for this video. The third and last video of this series will be coming out next weekend, where we will be covering Protection Paladins and Vengeance Demon Hunters. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I appreciate your support and time, and please let me know what I can do to make the content better. As always, thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe, and share this video.